Often revered as one of the most prodigious historical phenomenons in Black history, the Haitian Revolution was a series of auspicious circumstances and admirable triumphs. Christopher Columbus discovered Hispaniola in 1492. The Spanish later ceded half of the island to the French. It became known as Saint-Domingue and was renamed Haiti after the revolution's success in 1804. The Haitian Revolution was successful for Black insurgents because of the coordination of their attacks and the pre-existing socio-economic instability in Saint-Domingue. However, foreign nations reacted with extensive measures to limit Haiti's actual independence. Militant Blacks implemented numerous efficacious strategies to achieve independence, such as assailing the Saint-Dominguean economy and coordinating tactical guerrilla warfare. Saint-Domingue was indisputably the wealthiest colony in the world throughout the 1700s, producing 40% of the world's sugar and half of its coffee. This made up 40% of metropolitan France's total revenue. Such unprecedented prosperity came from the strenuous labor of approximately 500,000 enslaved Africans and the brutal supervision of a mere 30,000 whites, 15,000 free blacks, and 15,000 free mulattoes. Mulattoes are half black and half white. Pre-revolutionary conditions between 1788 and 1791 made the commencement of revolt unobviable. France was dependent on its colonies, therefore the French Revolutionary Wars weakened and destabilized the entire French Empire. The French General Assembly then published the Declaration of the Rights of Man that ignited Grand Blancs, or white planters, with resentment for France's mercantilist economic policy because it restricted trade. They often practiced contraband with the United States and Britain. Meanwhile, free people of color organized protests in response to afflictions like inferior treatment, taxation without representation in the colonial assembly, and exclusion from the military. Petit Blancs, or poor white merchants' formation of a new Saint-Dominguean colonial assembly catalyzed political disarray when it drafted a constitution for the entire colony that Grand Blancs vehemently opposed. They subsequently armed their slaves in preparation of a skirmish with the Petit Blancs, while free people of color armed their slaves to secure political rights they had received in an ambiguous piece of legislation that the French General Assembly passed in May of 1791. Slaves took advantage of the opportune instability between Saint-Dominguean socioeconomic classes and France to begin their campaign for independence. The premeditated uprising uniformly began in the northern plains on August 21, 1791, because Dudley Bookman disseminated the information in a Vaudou service 1 week prior. Slave insurgents used the provision of armament from their masters, cultivation tools, and conflagration as weapons in warfare. Their arson destroyed thousands of plantations, and when compounded with a lost workforce, the Saint-Dominguean economy plummeted. Many free people of color discontinued their claims of social superiority and animosity towards slaves by joining them when rights that they had received from the May Decree were revoked in September 1791. On February 1, 1793, France declared war on the Allied Britain and Spain. General Léger-Félicité Sonthonax apprehended a British invasion and declared general emancipation on August 29th to increase the number of troops serving under him. Slaves were still fighting for their freedom. Sonthonax simply made their freedom and French control of Saint-Domingue a common goal. Abolitionism had expanded because the commercial tolls of a lost labor force, ravaged plantations, and instability made it an economically feasible solution, revealing the effectiveness of black slaves' strategies. The British and Spanish fleets arrived in Saint-Domingue on September 19, 1793. 1 year later, they captured Port-au-Prince and most of the other port cities. Toussaint Louverture was a talented general for the Spanish and a Saint-Dominguean free black man that betrayed France after they executed Louis XVI. He returned to the French side, however, when he realized that Sonthonax's general emancipation was permanent. Louverture's profound military and leadership skills immediately became a turning point in the war. French control in Saint-Domingue expanded after his switch. His generals and him reorganized the troops that largely consisted of emancipated black slaves, and they began practicing guerrilla warfare. By late 1797, Louverture's troops had gained so much control over the island that they expelled the British, Spanish, and even Léger Sonthonax because of their distrust of him. Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of France, replaced Sonthonax with General Hidouville, given the secret agenda of decreasing blacks' threatening power. Toussaint suspected Hidouville of this, though, and convinced Saint-Dominguans that Hidouville intended to reinstall slavery so that they would deport him to France. Civil war between Toussaint and a southern mulatto named André Rigaud regardlessly erupted in January 1799, but Louverture and his generals swiftly defeated him at Jacmel in November. Hidouville's attempt at instigating instability in Saint-Domingue to reassert the need for French control only exacerbated the conditions that minimized it, because the Civil War empowered northern black troops. Toussaint Louverture and his generals paved the way for Saint-Dominguean independence at the turn of the century. Louverture ensured the perpetuation of the end of slavery. Jean-Jacques Dessalines stimulated a decline in French supremacy when Louverture failed to do so, and various leaders moralized blacks in their fight for freedom. White planters generally accumulated more wealth from Louverture's disregard for mercantilism than they lost in paying field hands, so he brought stability to the Saint-Dominguean socioeconomic structure. In addition to all this, Louverture and his black troops conquered the eastern portion of Hispaniola that Spain ceded to France in 1795. The generals finally assured political independence from France without an official declaration by drafting a constitution in July of 1801 based on agriculture and Catholicism.
By 1801, 1802, Toussaint Louverture, up until that point, had been a great leader. But Toussaint Louverture missed the direction that this revolution was going. Because the revolution in 1801, 1802 was no longer simply about throwing the planters out. It was no longer about abolishing slavery. It was also about terminating the link with France to become independent. And there were other people around Toussaint Louverture, people like Dessalines, who recognized this link.
Napoleon Bonaparte, the French emperor, felt genuinely threatened by black ex-slaves and sent General Charles Leclerc with 22,000 soldiers in 1802 to capture Louverture. Bonaparte declared, "My decision to destroy the authority of the blacks in Saint-Domingue is not based on commerce, as on the need to block forever the forward march of blacks in the world." This provoked Toussaint Louverture's generals to renew their revolutionary status. They organized their attacks in the Arcueil Conference with Dessalines as their new leader. In 1803, Toussaint Louverture's sudden death in captivity infuriated black rebels, and France's re-engagement of war with Great Britain limited French reinforcements and supplies. So, on January 1st, 1804, black troops emerged victorious and the island was renamed Haiti, forming the first free black republic in the entire world. Many of the post-revolutionary reforms the Haitian government instituted were actually detrimental. With no modern labor structure to use as a precedent, Dessalines implemented a system called fermage that mimicked the outdated feudalism. Although it somewhat brought prosperity, freedmen felt as if the system was too similar to slavery and sought more proprietorship. Haiti consequently resorted to subsistence farming and minimal trading, amassing little revenue. Haiti later underwent civil war over racial and political conflicts. After Haiti suffered from crippling political isolation and de facto embargoes, foreign nations exploited Haiti. France requested indemnity for land and even lost personnel, which French appraisers amounted to 150 million francs, the equivalent of $20 billion. German and American investors took advantage of Haiti's vulnerable economy in the early 20th century. The United States disliked German presence in the Western Hemisphere because of World War I, so they invaded Haiti in 1915. The U.S. paid off Haitian debts to France, but actually refinanced by demanding reimbursement in which the U.S. received profitable interest. The U.S. silenced Haitians by killing between 5,000 and 15,000 protesters. The American government then endowed the Duvalier regime with millions of dollars in the 1950s, a military coup that embezzled that money and killed thousands of people. What began as the relatively small plan of a voodoo priest in 1791 indirectly engendered the first free black republic in the world 13 years later. Black insurgents attacked the Saint-Dominguean economy and worsened political instability to achieve freedom. Once they expelled foreign interferences, they reinitiated their campaign for independence by driving a socio-economic and ideological wedge between France and Saint-Domingue. Black insurgents, led by Dessalines, finally guaranteed their independence by defeating General Charles Leclerc's troops. How Haiti declined from this glorious moment in world history to its current state as the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, is mostly attributable to continuous structural violence since San Domingan slavery and mistreatment from foreign nations.
We get down and out, and there seems no hope at all. But if you just believe